Imagine waking up one morning with everything you ever wanted. The house you once dreamed of stands tall in silence, its walls painted with the colors you once swore would make you happy. The bank account glows with a security you once envied in others. The partner you idealized lies asleep beside you, their breathing steady, serene. For a fleeting moment, you feel victorious, as though life has finally delivered the prize you've been chasing. But then it happens. The silence inside you grows louder. The walls, so carefully chosen, begin to feel cold. The money that once symbolized freedom now feels like a chain of responsibility. The partner you adored becomes another mirror reflecting your restlessness back at you. And the question emerges, quietly at first but quickly consuming you. Why does fulfillment dissolve the instant you touch it? Arthur Schopenhauer believed he had the answer. To him, desire was not a stepping stone toward happiness, it was the engine of suffering itself. Every human life, he argued, is driven by an insatiable force he called the will to live. It pushes you forward, whispers into your every craving, and dangles the promise of satisfaction just out of reach. You strive, you achieve, you momentarily rejoice, and then you want again. Isn't it strange? The things you swore would bring peace now feel empty, like mirages evaporating under the desert sun. The diploma that once validated your worth becomes nothing more than paper. The promotion that promised dignity leaves you hungrier for the next rung. The love that once set your soul on fire becomes routine. The pattern repeats endlessly. Desire rises, desire consumes, desire fulfills itself only by birthing the next desire. It is not just material things. Even spiritual pursuits, noble causes, or intellectual triumphs are not immune. You meditate to find calm, but soon crave deeper states of transcendence. You dedicate yourself to justice, but once one wrong is corrected, countless others demand your attention. You learn something profound, and suddenly the vast ocean of what you do not know leaves you thirsting again. Desire is not conquered, it mutates. So here lies the paradox. If desire is endless, then so too is dissatisfaction. To live is to want, and to want is to suffer. If you try to escape desire, you only end up desiring escape itself. If you surrender to it, you're enslaved by an infinite hunger. But what is this hunger, really? Is it you, the conscious mind making rational decisions? Or is it something deeper, something primal, something that existed long before thought? Schopenhauer argued that your conscious self is merely a surface ripple on the ocean of this will, and that the will does not care about peace, only persistence. It wants to continue, to propagate, to move, without reason, without end. And if he was right, then here's the terrifying thought: everything you do, your ambition, your love, your faith, even your acts of kindness, might not be freely chosen at all. They might simply be expressions of this blind, ceaseless will, using you as its instrument. Think about it. You don't choose to be hungry, yet you obey. You don't choose to desire beauty, power, companionship, yet the impulses surge in you without asking permission. You may think you are chasing goals, but perhaps it is goals that are chasing you. This is where the great question takes shape, the one that unsettles the very foundation of what it means to live. If every desire leads only to another, and satisfaction is nothing but a pause before the next hunger, then what is the point of wanting anything at all? Pause here. Let the question unsettle you. Let it cut through the comforting illusions that life is a series of finish lines. You already know this truth in your bones, every time you've reached the summit of a goal only to feel the horizon stretch further away. You already feel it in the quiet moments of unease that follow your greatest victories. So where does that leave you? Are you condemned to chase endlessly, like a wanderer trapped in a desert with no oasis, only mirages? Or is there some other way to see, some other way to live? The answer is not simple. It requires peeling back layers of psychology, philosophy, and the human condition itself. To understand why desire is endless, we must journey into the hidden architecture of the mind, into the roots of dissatisfaction that Schopenhauer, Jung, Nietzsche, and others tried to expose. And that is where we go next. Imagine for a moment that your life is not guided by freedom, not sculpted by rational choice, but pulled along by invisible strings. You feel like the author of your story, yet what if you are merely a character whose lines are already written by forces you cannot see? Schopenhauer believed that this force, the will, is not just another instinct. It is the hidden engine behind all of existence. He described it as blind, irrational, and relentless. Unlike reason, which weighs options and calculates outcomes, the will does not ask why. It only pushes. It is the surge of hunger that makes you eat even when you swore you'd fast. It is the pull of lust that shatters vows and rearranges destinies. It is the ambition that drives you past exhaustion, promising glory but delivering only the hunger for more. The will, Schopenhauer said, is not something you possess. It is what you are. Now pause here and think. If your deepest essence is nothing but this restless drive, then peace is not merely hard to achieve, it is impossible. To exist is to want, and to want is to lack. Desire by its very nature presupposes absence. You can only crave what you do not yet have. Therefore, in the structure of desire itself, dissatisfaction is woven like a thread. This is why, Schopenhauer argued, happiness is not a positive state but a temporary absence of pain. When a desire is fulfilled, it brings relief, but that relief quickly collapses into boredom, which is just another form of suffering. Boredom is not peace, it is the mind's protest against the emptiness left when desire pauses. And soon, a new craving rushes in to fill the void. The pendulum swings endlessly between pain and boredom, between striving and dissatisfaction. Psychology echoes this with startling precision. Consider the concept of the hedonic treadmill. Studies show that when people achieve life-changing goals, wealth, marriage, recognition, their happiness spikes only temporarily before returning to its baseline. Lottery winners, after a few years, are no happier than before. The new house, once intoxicating, soon blends into the background of ordinary life. The human brain is wired to adapt, and in this adaptation lies the silent rebirth of desire. You do not stay satisfied, you are designed to hunger again. But why? Why would life be structured this way? Schopenhauer offers a bleak answer, because the will is not interested in your happiness. It is interested in perpetuation. Its only law is continue. Your pleasures, your triumphs, your temporary highs are simply bait. The will lures you forward with the promise of satisfaction, but the goal was never peace, the goal was motion. Nietzsche, who both admired and resisted Schopenhauer, pushed this further. He saw in this endless striving not just suffering but also the seed of greatness. Man, he said, is a rope stretched between the animal and the overman. Desire, though tormenting, forces us beyond comfort, beyond stagnation. Yet even Nietzsche admitted, the price of becoming is perpetual restlessness. To be human is to burn. Carl Jung, from another angle, described desire as the projection of the unconscious, our inner shadow casting shapes onto the world, making us chase external objects that reflect internal voids. You don't merely want money, or beauty, or power. You want the sense of wholeness you believe those things will deliver. But the objects can never fully satisfy, because they are symbols of something deeper, something unfulfilled within. Desire, then, is not about the thing. It is about the ghost behind the thing, the phantom of completion that forever escapes your grasp. Consider how this plays out in your own life. You fall in love, but beneath the attraction lies a yearning for safety, for validation, for the feeling of being chosen. You strive for success, but beneath it lies a yearning for recognition, for assurance that you matter. Each goal hides another, more primal desire underneath. And beneath even that, perhaps, lies the will itself, raw, blind, unreasoning, pushing forward endlessly. Aldous Huxley once warned that most human pursuits are little more than organized lovemaking and money-grubbing, endless cycles of desire dressed up in culture's finest robes. Sartre, too, noted that man is a useless passion, forever reaching toward a godlike wholeness he can never achieve. Viktor Frankl, though more hopeful, saw meaning itself as a form of desire, the longing to find purpose, to write coherence into a life that otherwise spirals into absurdity. All of this suggests that dissatisfaction is not an accident. It is the essence of existence. The root problem is not that you are unsatisfied, it is that you are built to be unsatisfied. Peace is not denied to you by circumstance, it is denied to you by design. And yet, here lies the cruelest twist. The very force that enslaves you is also the one that convinces you of freedom. You feel like you are choosing, striving for your own ends, building your own future. But Schopenhauer would say, no. You are a puppet pulled by invisible threads. Every craving that feels like you is simply the will speaking through you. You are not the master, you are the mask. You wake each morning thinking you are steering your own life, but beneath the surface, desire is already steering you. It dictates the shape of your day, the rhythm of your emotions, and even the meaning you assign to your existence. What seems like freedom is often only obedience to an ancient, unseen master. And the most unsettling truth is this: desire doesn't just shape you, it shapes the entire civilization you inhabit. Consider the restless consumer, endlessly reaching for the next purchase. The advertisement tells them they lack something, and they obey. A new phone, a new car, a new wardrobe, objects presented as solutions to a discomfort that never goes away. But what if the discomfort isn't solved by the purchase at all? What if the discomfort is the point, the itch that keeps the wheels of society turning? Modern economies thrive on dissatisfaction. The endless production and consumption cycle depends on you never feeling complete. If happiness could be sustained, markets would collapse. A fulfilled human being is a terrible consumer. And so entire industries are built upon cultivating new desires, creating artificial hungers where none existed before. Cosmetics tell you you're not beautiful enough. Social media tells you you're not loved enough. Self-help tells you you're not successful enough. The cycle ensures that whatever you achieve will soon feel inadequate, driving you back to the marketplace for the next fix. But the consequence is more than economic, it's existential. When desire becomes the fabric of identity, you no longer live as a being but as a becoming. You measure yourself not by what you are but by what you are reaching for. I will be happy when becomes the mantra of your days. And when you arrive at the promised moment, you discover that happiness has already fled to the next horizon. Your life becomes a perpetual rehearsal, never the performance. Neurology confirms this cruel trick. Dopamine, often mistaken for the chemical of pleasure, is actually the chemical of anticipation. It floods your brain not when you possess, but when you pursue. The rush comes not from eating the meal, but from smelling it cooking, not from holding success, but from chasing it. Once the object is obtained, dopamine drops, and the mind grows restless again. Evolution wired you this way to ensure survival, to keep you hunting, building, striving. But in a modern world where survival is rarely at stake, the same mechanism traps you in a loop of restless seeking. Now extend this from the personal to the collective. What is history if not the endless striving of nations for more land, more power, more dominance? Empires rise not because they lack enough, but because the thirst for expansion is insatiable. And like individuals, once they reach their peak, they collapse under the weight of boredom, decadence, or internal unrest. The wheel of history turns with the same blind will Schopenhauer described. Wars, revolutions, innovations, all can be traced back to the unending hunger that no victory can quench. But perhaps the most haunting consequence lies in how desire shapes your very sense of self. You believe you are pursuing your goals freely, but what if your identity itself is nothing more than a cluster of desires? Who are you without the things you crave? Strip away ambition, attraction, hunger, longing. What remains? Most people recoil at this question because it suggests that the self is hollow, a mask worn by desire. Think of the moments when your desires are thwarted. The rejection of love, the failure of ambition, the loss of health or wealth. In those moments, it feels not just like losing something external, but like losing a piece of yourself. You don't simply say, "I didn't get what I wanted." You say, "I am nothing without it." Desire and identity are fused so tightly that when one collapses, the other trembles. And then there is boredom, the shadow side of desire. When nothing urgent presses, when no goal inflames the mind, a strange emptiness spreads. People cannot tolerate it. They fill it with screens, with noise, with distractions, with addictions. Boredom, Schopenhauer insisted, is proof that life's default state is suffering. If pain does not drive you, emptiness will. The consequence is a civilization addicted not just to things, but to motion itself, terrified of stillness because stillness exposes the void. On the psychological level, this endless cycle often breeds anxiety and depression. If satisfaction never lasts, then life begins to feel like a treadmill of futility. You run harder, but the scenery never changes. Some surrender to despair, concluding with Schopenhauer that life itself is suffering. Others numb themselves with substances, entertainment, or constant busyness, anything to avoid confronting the silence beneath. Imagine standing in front of a locked door. Behind it lies the peace you've been searching for, the end of the restless cycle, the silence after centuries of noise. You have tried every key you could find, wealth, romance, knowledge, power, but none fit the lock. And then, in a moment of despair, you realize something shocking. The door has no keyhole. It was never meant to open in the way you expected. Schopenhauer argued that the only true rebellion against endless desire is not to win the game, but to stop playing it. If the will drives existence forward with blind hunger, then the deepest form of freedom is to turn away from its demands. This is not the rebellion of fire and conquest, but the rebellion of renunciation. A quiet defiance that whispers, "I will not be enslaved by endless craving." For Schopenhauer, art was one of the first paths toward this freedom. In moments of aesthetic contemplation, when you lose yourself in music, in painting, in poetry, you step outside the cycle of desire. For a brief instant, you are not wanting, not grasping, not chasing. You are simply beholding. Music, he said, was the purest escape, for it expressed the will itself while simultaneously allowing you to transcend it. In art, you touch eternity without asking it to satisfy you. Yet Schopenhauer went further. The most radical rebellion, he claimed, was the ascetic life, the renunciation of desire altogether. Saints, monks, mystics, those who gave up wealth, power, even the pleasures of the body, in pursuit of liberation from the will. To him, these figures were not mad but heroic, for they dared to confront existence and say no. By denying desire, they denied the very force that enslaved them. But here's the paradox. Can you really escape desire by desiring escape? Can you renounce the will without the will itself corrupting that renunciation? Even Schopenhauer admitted the danger. Asceticism is an extreme path, one that very few can genuinely sustain. And for many, it feels more like self-denial than freedom. Other thinkers offered different rebellions. Nietzsche, for instance, scoffed at Schopenhauer's renunciation. To deny the will, he argued, is to deny life itself. Instead, Nietzsche urged us to embrace the endless hunger, to affirm it, to transform suffering into strength. If desire is endless, then the rebellion is not to extinguish it but to ride it, to dance with it, to create with it. He envisioned the Übermensch, the one who says yes to existence even in its cruelty, who wills his own fate with fearless joy. Both visions, Schopenhauer's negation and Nietzsche's affirmation, present paths of rebellion, though in opposite directions. One seeks liberation through silence, the other through song. One says, turn away from the will, the other, become the will. And perhaps rebellion itself lies in choosing which voice you heed. Psychology, too, offers tools for rebellion. Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the Holocaust, argued that even in suffering we can choose meaning. Desire may be endless, but if we root our lives not in pleasure or possession but in purpose, the cycle loses some of its sting. Frankl taught that man's deepest freedom is to choose his attitude toward suffering. You may not escape desire, but you can reframe it as fuel for meaning rather than as chains of dissatisfaction. Consider also the mindfulness traditions of Buddhism, which Schopenhauer deeply admired. The rebellion is not to deny desire violently, but to observe it calmly. By noticing cravings without immediately obeying them, you begin to loosen their grip. Meditation is the practice of watching the will rise and fall without being pulled into its tides. The rebellion is gentle, but powerful. You stop being the puppet and begin watching the strings. Even in ordinary life, rebellion is possible in small, radical acts. To slow down in a culture that worships speed. To choose simplicity in a world addicted to excess. To appreciate without owning, to love without clinging, to act without demanding reward. Each of these is a quiet revolution against the tyranny of endless craving. Think of those who have embodied this rebellion. Imagine, once again, that endless morning where you woke to find everything you had ever wanted. The house, the wealth, the love, the recognition, they are all yours. And yet, the silence of dissatisfaction creeps back in, just as Schopenhauer warned it would. You feel the same gnawing emptiness, the same hunger that no feast could satisfy. At first, despair rises. Is this all life is? A treadmill that never ends. But then something shifts. You begin to see the hunger itself differently. It is no longer just a chain dragging you forward. It is also the very pulse of life. Without it, you realize, there would be no art, no creation, no striving, no story. A life without desire would not simply be peaceful, it would be inert, lifeless, devoid of meaning. Here lies the paradox at the heart of the ultimate truth. Desire is endless, yes, but perhaps that is not a flaw of existence, but its essence. Schopenhauer was correct in diagnosing the pain, but perhaps he stopped at the threshold of what this pain could reveal. The hunger you feel is not merely a curse, it is also a call. A call to awaken, to see that what you chase outside of yourself is, at its root, already within you. Every desire points not to the object, but to a deeper longing, the longing to be whole. And here is the revelation. Wholeness is not achieved by accumulation, but by awareness. Think of the flame again. Uncontrolled, it devours everything in its path, leaving ashes where beauty once stood. But tended carefully, a flame gives warmth, light, direction. Desire is like this. When you are unconscious, it consumes you. When you awaken, you learn to guide it, to let it illuminate rather than destroy. The final realization, then, is not to escape desire, nor to surrender entirely to it, but to transform your relationship with it. To see desire not as a tyrant to be obeyed or slain, but as a messenger to be understood. Every craving, whether for love, success, or meaning, is pointing you towards something eternal, the fact that you already are complete, even in your incompleteness. This echoes through philosophies East and West. Buddhism teaches that craving causes suffering, but in the silence of mindfulness, you can awaken to the truth that you are not your cravings. Christianity whispers of a peace that surpasses understanding, found not in possessions but in surrender. Even Nietzsche, in his fierce affirmation, suggested that by saying yes to existence in all its suffering, one transforms restlessness into power. The ultimate rebellion, then, is not negation, not indulgence, but integration. To live as if every desire is both real and illusory, real in its immediate pull, but illusory in its promise to complete you. When you see this clearly, you are no longer enslaved. The will still pulses through you, but it no longer deceives you. You move through life with open eyes. Imagine yourself in this awakened state. You feel desire rise within you, hunger, ambition, attraction, and you no longer mistake it for destiny. You watch it with curiosity. You act when it aligns with your deeper values, and you release it when it does not. You are no longer dragged, no longer chained. You walk alongside your desires, neither resisting nor worshipping them. This is not the annihilation of the will, but the illumination of it. And in this illumination, peace arises, not the fragile peace of boredom, not the fleeting peace of satisfaction, but the enduring peace of knowing the game without being consumed by it. Here lies the ultimate truth. Fulfillment is not in the object of desire, but in the awareness of desire itself. The endlessness of longing becomes, paradoxically, the gateway to freedom. Because once you stop expecting desire to give you final peace, you are free to live fully in the present, free to dance with the endlessness instead of being devoured by it. Think of water flowing down a riverbed. If you fight the current, you exhaust yourself. If you surrender blindly, you are carried without direction. But if you learn to swim with awareness, you move with the current while shaping your path. That is life with desire, not conquered, not resisted, but navigated consciously. And so the question that haunted you at the beginning, if desire never ends, what is the point of wanting anything at all, finds its answer. The point is not to arrive, but to awaken. The point is not to grasp, but to grow. The point is not to silence desire, but to listen to what it reveals about your own depths. Your life, then, is not a tragedy of endless dissatisfaction, but a canvas painted by the colors of longing. The hues of love, ambition, struggle, and even despair are not mistakes. They are the brushstrokes of existence itself. To live is to desire, and to desire is to participate in the eternal rhythm of becoming. And when you finally see it this way, the silence you once feared no longer feels empty. It feels alive, humming with possibility. You realize that peace is not at the end of desire, but at the center of it, available in every moment you choose to step back, to see clearly, to breathe deeply. So the final revelation is both humbling and liberating. You will never be free from desire, but you can be free within it. The endlessness of longing is not your prison, but your teacher. And in accepting this, you discover a truth so simple, so profound, that it reshapes everything. You are already whole, even in your hunger. You are already home, even while searching. The endlessness of desire is not the curse of existence. It is its very song. And now the question is no longer, when will I finally be satisfied? The question becomes, how deeply will I awaken while desiring endlessly?